Hi, welcome to this edition of Dive in 5 for Grade 1 Money. I'm Bailey Murphy, Math ERT. Here's your first task. In just a moment, you're going to pause the video. You'll complete the task on your own or with a team or partner. And while you're completing the task, I want you to be thinking about what does the instruction need to look like in order for students to be successful with this task, and also consider what are some misconceptions that students may have. Here's your task. Pause the video, and I'll see you back in a minute. Welcome back. Let's talk about the progression with best. So in kindergarten, students are counting by ones and tens to 100, as well as counting forward within 100. Students in first grade will continue on with counting by ones to 120. They'll skip count by twos to 20 and fives to 100. In first grade is where the money benchmarks are introduced. So this is where students will identify pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters and express their values using the cent symbol. They'll identify how many of each of those coins make $1. They'll find the value of a combination of pennies, nickels, and dimes up to $1, as well as finding the value of a combination of $1, $5, and $10 bills up to $100, and they'll use the dollar sign and cent symbol to represent money amounts. This learning continues on in second grade, where students will combine coins to find the total value within 100 cents. They'll combine dollars to find the total value within $100. And they'll solve 1 to 2 step addition and subtraction real world problem involving money, and they'll continue to use the dollar sign and cent sign to represent money amounts. In this Dive in 5, we're going to focus on the first grade benchmarks. In first grade, students should be using defining attributes to identify coins and values of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. It's important to note that students should be expected to identify both sides of the coin, so both the head and the tail side, as you see on your screen. The value of the coin should be recorded using the cent symbol. First grade students are not expected to use decimals and should use the cent symbol such as seen on the screen. So 1 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent, and 25 cents. When we're thinking about the defining attributes of coins, we want to treat it similar to the defining attributes of shapes. So we want to give students a set of coins and ask them to make observations about each individual coin. When we're thinking about the coin, defining attributes can include the color of the coin, can include the size of the coin, as well as the pictures on the front and the back. Something that's important to note that students would only be able to see and feel with concrete tools is the edges. So pennies, dimes, and quarters all have ridges on the edge, whereas a quarter has a very smooth edge. This can be used to help students identify which coin is which. It's important to note that sometimes students struggle with understanding how the size of the coin is not related to the value. For example, some students may think that a dime, because it's the smallest coin, is the smallest value. However, that is not true. We want to make sure that we're making that very clear when we're helping students determine defining attributes. In first grade, students are expected to identify coins equal to $1. So for example, if we're counting by pennies or by the value of 1, I would need 100 pennies in order to get to 100 or to $1. We can do the same thing with nickels. This hundreds chart will help students see the relationship between the coin and the value of 100. When we're skip counting by nickels, we're skip counting by fives, and we can show students that when we count by 5, we get to 100, and that we would have to count by 5 20 times, which would be the same as 20 nickels to have $1. Same thing with my dimes. I can count by tens. I would need 10 dimes to make 100 cents or $1. Now, in first grade, students are not expected to be able to skip count by 25 or by quarter amount, and so that may be helpful for students to color the amount of each quarter in a different color to see how 4 quarters is equivalent to 100 cents or $1. Within this benchmark, students also have to be able to identify $1, $5, and $10 bills. Same thing as we did with the coins, we're going to want them to focus on those defining attributes, and we're going to really want to draw attention to the fact that on all 4 corners of these bills are the value of that bill. So my $1 bill has ones on all 4 corners. Same thing with my 10. There are tens in all 4 corners telling me the value of that bill. We want to record it using the dollar symbol, and again, first grade students should not be using decimals. Students in first grade are going to be using place value and skip counting to find the value of coin combinations using pennies, nickels, and dimes up to $1 or 100 cents. It's important to note that quarters are not included in combining coins. So when we think about the concrete model, we can give students a set of coins and we can start asking them what might be the best way to count these. We want students to make connections between skip counting and counting on. And so if we think about this, I could count by tens first, my dimes. I count 10, 20, move to my nickels, 10, 20, 25, 30, 35, 36, 37, 38. Notice how when I skip counting, I didn't stop and count just the dimes, just the nickels, and just the pennies. I used all of my skip counting and I counted on. We want to help students make representations, and so it may be helpful for students to draw pictures of their coins that they have in front of them, label them with the name of the coin as well as the value. Students can also represent their thinking using a number line. As students continue to work with this, they'll move into writing equations. However, this is not the focus of the benchmark. The focus of the benchmark is really on skip counting and understanding how I can count on in order to find an amount. So if you think back to the task that I asked you to do at the beginning of the video, you were asked to figure out how many coins were in the pocket. And so if we skip count by our tens first, tens, 20, 30, 40, I have one nickel, that would give me 45. Then you were given more coins and you were asked to count on from the amount you had, which means you started at 45 and you went to 50, 55, 60, and finally 61 to figure out that your total amount would be 61 cents. Students will continue to use place value, counting on, and skip counting to find the value of a combination of $1, $5, and $10 bills up to $100. So we want to give students the concrete tools again, and we want to help them think about the most efficient way to count these. So we want to start with our 10, move to our 5, and then to our 1. So we would have 10, 15, 16, 17. Notice again that we're counting on. We're not counting each of these individually because we're trying to find the total amount. Students can draw a representation like seen on the screen, or they can use a number line. Some students may be ready to move to an equation. However, that's not the expectation of the benchmark. Please note that students should not be using decimals and they should be using the dollar sign to represent the total number of dollars they have. As we think about our CRA, we want to make sure that students are building really strong bridges in between each of these islands so that they're ready and they're mastering the content. We want to start with those concrete tools, especially those coins, so students can really understand what are the defining attributes of coins. They can move into some representation where they're drawing what these coins look like, what these bills look like, and even using a number line. Students that are ready may be ready to show their thinking using an equation, but this is not expected in first grade. In this edition for Dive in 5, we talked about money and we focused on grade 1 benchmarks. Thanks so much for joining us, and we hope to see you for our next video.